Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking an absolute giant in American fast food. Whether you live on the West Coast and eat there literally every week, or you've only seen those iconic crossed palm trees in movies and on your social media feeds, you know the name, In-N-Out Burger. It's a brand that's achieved this legendary, honestly almost mythical status. So today, we're going to dive straight into the secret sauce of their success. I mean, how exactly did a tiny, family-owned hamburger stand build a massive empire without ever selling out?
Okay, let's dive into this, because there is a really fascinating divide here. On one hand, you've got rabid fan obsession. Like, people will wait hours in a drive-thru line, and transplants will literally fly across the entire country just to get their fix. But then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you've got these highly vocal critics. You'll hear food bloggers and tourists call it average at best, complaining about the fries and claiming the whole thing is just totally overrated. It's one of those brands that just naturally stirs up intense debate.
And you know, that leads us to the central mystery of our entire explainer today. Think about it. How does a burger stand from 1948 that absolutely refuses to franchise, aggressively refuses to change its menu, and flat out rejects the idea of going public continue to generate such rabid cult-like loyalty, right? In an era where literally every company is desperately trying to scale at all costs, In-N-Out does the exact opposite. Let's peel back the layers and figure out why this actually works.
So, let's kick things off with Section 1, a drive-thru revolution.
To really understand their modern strategy, we've got to jump back to where this whole phenomenon started. Picture this, okay? It's October 22nd, 1948, in Baldwin Park, California. Harry and Esther Snyder open up this tiny 10-square-foot shack. Now, 1948 was a pretty pivotal year for fast food overall, but Harry Snyder did something entirely revolutionary. Working late at night in his garage, he invented a two-way speaker box. So instead of waiting for a car hop like everywhere else, hungry motorists could just drive right up, speak into a box, and get their food. They only sold 57 burgers on opening day, but they essentially birthed the modern drive-thru experience.
And their early menu definitely builds on that history. Back in 1948, your options were incredibly simple. We're talking a 25-cent hamburger, a 30-cent cheeseburger, 15-cent fries, and a 10-cent bottled soda. Now, obviously, inflation means those prices have changed a bit today, but what is absolutely staggering is that the core menu itself has stubbornly, and I'd argue brilliantly, remained exactly the same. Aside from swapping out bottled sodas for fountain drinks and officially adding milkshakes back in 1975, In-N-Out has completely refused to clutter their menu. It is just burgers, fries, and drinks. That's it.
Moving on to Section 2, the power of radical simplicity. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how that limited menu unlocks some absolutely massive operational advantages.
Because they only have to focus on two main food streams, burgers and fries, they can execute them with a level of meticulousness that massive, sprawling chains just can't match. Let's break it down. First, they hand-select premium chunks of beef. Second, their own associates actually remove the bones and grind the meat in-house at their own facilities. Third, there are no frozen fries here. They ship whole potatoes direct from the farm and individually slice them right inside the stores. And finally, everything is cooked to order using 100% sunflower oil. Guys, they literally do not own microwaves, freezers, or heat lamps. Period. How crazy is that?
And all of that brilliantly illustrates their most unbreakable rule, the number 300. 300 miles is the absolute maximum allowed distance from any In-N-Out restaurant to one of their patty-making commissaries. If a city is 301 miles away, nope, they will not build a restaurant there. It is an ironclad corporate policy that guarantees the meat is delivered fresh daily and never ever frozen.
But here's the really fun part of keeping operations so incredibly simple. It actually leaves room for legendary customization. You've probably heard whispers of the secret menu, right? Well, back in 1961, based entirely on customer requests, the famous animal-style burger was born. We're talking a mustard-cooked beef patty, lettuce, tomato, pickle, extra spread, and grilled onions. The genius of it is that it uses the exact same ingredients they already have sitting right there, so it doesn't slow down the kitchen one bit, but it makes the customer feel like an absolute insider. And occasionally, that customization goes to wild extremes. See, for years, there was actually no limit to how much extra meat and cheese you could stack on your burger. But then, in October 2004, a blogger named Will Young walked into a Las Vegas In-N-Out and ordered a 100 by 100. Yeah, you heard that right. 100 beef patties and 100 slices of cheese.
The total came out to $97.66, and he and 7 friends actually sat there and ate the entire massive tower. Once that photo went viral on the internet, management finally had to step in and cap all orders at a 4x4. Kind of a bummer, but you can see why.
All right, shifting gears a bit, let's look at Section 3, Surviving Tragedy and Expansion.
Because behind the scenes, it definitely hasn't all been fun viral moments and secret menus. The timeline of the company's leadership is actually marked by some unthinkable tragedy. Founder Harry Snyder passed away in 1976, and his son Rich had to take over at just 24 years old. Rich oversaw some really major expansion, but then in 1993, he was tragically killed in a plane crash. His brother Guy stepped up and successfully led the company until his own untimely passing in 1999. The founder's widow, Esther Snyder, bravely stepped in to guide the ship after that. And eventually, in 2010, Guy's daughter and Harry and Esther's only grandchild, Lindsay Snyder, became the company's president. Despite all these massive, heartbreaking shocks, the family somehow managed to keep the brand entirely intact. And under that continuous family leadership, they've executed a remarkably slow, almost painfully deliberate geographic expansion. Get this, they didn't even open a single store outside of California until Nevada in 1992. Texas finally got its first stores in 2011. Fast forward to August 2025, they opened in Washington, officially completing their West Coast footprint. And by December 2025, they expanded to Tennessee, making it their 10th state and their furthest location east to date. But remember the golden rule. Every single one of these new expansions only happened because they built entirely new supply chains to strictly adhere to that 300-mile fresh delivery limit. They do not compromise on that.
Which brings us to Section 4, Purpose, People, and Philanthropy.
So the crucial point is how they actually maintain this incredible culture today. It all comes down to the human element. To serve food in what they call a warm and friendly manner, you really need happy employees. Just look at this comparison here. While the fast food industry average salary for a restaurant manager sits around $72,000, an In-N-Out manager can earn up to $150,000 a year. That is huge. They also offer starting hourly wages well above the minimum, flexible schedules, and genuinely great benefits. And what's the result? Well, their employee turnover rate is roughly 50%, which, to put that into perspective, is an astonishing 4 to 6 times lower than the industry average. By treating their people incredibly well, they pretty much guarantee that famous, smiling customer service. And they protect this culture fiercely by completely refusing outside money. When he was asked about franchising or taking the company public back in 1989, former President Rich Snyder said, "My feeling is that I would be prostituting what my parents made by doing that. You lose something." And decades later, current President Lindsay Snyder Ellingson echoes that exact same sentiment, stating plainly that selling out is just not an option. They firmly believe that Wall Street would immediately force them to compromise on their people and their ingredients, and they just aren't willing to do it. This intense independence also allows them to focus heavily on mission-driven philanthropy. This is motivated deeply by the Snyder-Ellingson family's Christian faith, and it takes shape through 3 major charitable foundations. First, the In-N-Out Burger Foundation focuses on child abuse prevention. Then you have the Slave to Nothing Foundation, which was started in 2016 to fight substance abuse and human trafficking. And most recently, in 2025, they launched the His Eyes Foundation to provide hope and real resources for those experiencing homelessness, which was actually created to honor the legacy of Lindsay's late husband, Evan Ellingson. It's a huge part of their broader servant leadership mission. And you know, this deeply human, service-oriented mindset bleeds right back into the restaurants themselves. In an era where every other fast food chain is practically rushing to implement self-checkout kiosks, AI drive-thrus, and mobile ordering apps, In-N-Out actively pushes back. Lindsay Snyder Ellingson has openly stated that they hesitate to adopt these automation technologies specifically to preserve human warmth. They firmly believe that the gentle connection, the face-to-face interaction, and just getting a smile from an associate are as vital to the In-N-Out experience as the burger itself. Which brings us to our final thought for the day. In a modern corporate world that is just utterly obsessed with tech, automation, and scaling at all costs, In-N-Out basically operates like a stubbornly successful ghost from 1948. They do things the hard way, the slow way, the human way. So I want to leave you with this question. Is In-N-Out's complete refusal to change its ultimate unbeatable strength, or in a rapidly evolving world will it eventually become its only limitation? It's a fascinating question, and whatever the answer, it's pretty clear their secret sauce is working for now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you found this breakdown as captivating as I did.